Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to the course of International Relations for undergraduate classes conducted by ComSet Institute of Information Technology, Virtual Campus Islamabad. Dear students, in the previous lecture we discussed about Warsaw Treaty Organization and CETO and finally CENTO. ये वो तंजीमें हैं जो कि दिफाई मकासद के लिए बनाई गई थी. After World War II, we saw the conflicts and the tension growing between the two camps, the Soviet Union and the United States. अब अमेरिका ने, यूएस ने अपने सिक्योरिटी के लिए और अपने यूरोपियन जो उनके फ्रेंड्स हैं उनकी सिक्योरिटी के लिए नीटो की तंजीम बनाई. So this includes US plus the countries which were in Western Europe. As a result, Soviet Union also did the same, and in 1955 it established an organization called Warsaw Treaty Organization. The purpose was the same, to protect the members and their territorial integrity and their sovereignty from the NATO powers. This treaty, Warsaw Pact, include Soviet Union and its allies which were from Eastern European countries, and these countries were under the full control of from Moscow, who would be controlling all these countries, and their decision would be taken by the Moscow. Warsaw Pact वक्त के साथ साथ अपनी अफादियत खोता गया. It becomes very weak with the passage of time. In 80s, as we saw that there was civil and political discomfort and the people were not happy. As a result, these Eastern European countries, they start losing their influence through communist hands, and the other non-communist becoming stronger. So they overthrew the communist governments. As a result, the Warsaw Pact members start withdrawing from the Warsaw Pact. तो जब इनके मेंबर्स वारसा को खैर बात कहने लगे, वहाँ से क्विट करते गए. ईस्ट जर्मनी चला गया, चेकोस्लोवाकिया चला गया. इसी तरह बाकी जो ईस्टर्न यूरोपियन कंट्रीज हैं, दे आल्सो लेफ्ट वारसा पैक्ट. एज अ रिजल्ट एंड विद द डिमाइज ऑफ सोवियत यूनियन, वारसा पैक्ट फाइनली come to an end. Then we discussed about CETO, which stands for Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, which come under the Manila Pact that was signed in 1954, and then finally the headquarters was established in 1955 in Bangkok. This was a military alliance with the sole purpose of defending its member countries from threat from communist. तो ये पैक्ट डिफेंस हवाले से बनाई गई थी, और ये इसमें जो कंट्रीज शामिल थे, so they were not very much from Southeast Asia. Rather, majority of the countries were from regions outside Southeast Asia. CETO is one of the least successful organization of the Cold War. इसमें CETO did not help Pakistan during the war with India in 1965 and 1971. Although Pakistan requested CETO as a member that the security of the country is at stake, therefore it should be provided military assistance. But the purpose of CETO was to contain communism. As a result, it did not offer any help to Pakistan. Therefore, Pakistan left CETO in 1972, and CETO was finally dissolved in 1977. फिर CENTO है, which stands for Central Treaty Organization. This was established in 1955 between Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Turkey, and UK. US also joined this treaty. इसका पहला नाम Middle East Treaty Organization था, and the headquarters was in Baghdad. So because of a revolution in Iraq in 1958, Iraq finally withdrew its membership from CENTO. तो इसीलिए इसका नाम फिर Middle East Treaty Organization से चेंज करके CENTO रख दिया गया, which stands for Central Treaty Organization, and the headquarters was transferred to Turkey, Ankara. Again, ये भी एक unsuccessful alliance रही है. Its purpose was to contain communism and would not provide any help to the member countries when they were involved in their other region conflicts. तो पाकिस्तान को again it did not offer any help in the year 1965 and 1971. इसी तरह during the Arab-Israel war, CENTO again did not involve itself in that war and did not provide any help. CENTO, as a result, was again dissolved in the year 1971 when Pakistan also left it in the same year, and Iran, because of its Iranian revolution, also left it. As a result, it was finally dissolved in the same year. आज का जो टॉपिक है, so this would be about OIC, which stands for Organization of Islamic Conference. ये इसका पहला नाम है. The official language of OIC are Arabic, English and French. Its name was changed in 2011 from the Organization of Islamic Conference to Organization of Islamic Countries. तो जिस तरह पहले कहा कि इसका पहला नाम Organization of Islamic Conference था, but as with the passage of time and with the growing cooperation between the countries and the influence that it carry, as a result, its name was finally changed to 2011 to Organization of Islamic Countries. साथ में इसका जो लोगो है वो भी चेंज कर दिया गया. So on your screen you can see the new monogram of OIC. It was founded in Rabat, Morocco in 1969 in reaction to Israel attack on Al-Aqsa Mosque. तो ये 1969 को वजूद में आई है. इसकी जो सबसे immediate reason था, so in the same year when Israel burnt a part of Al-Aqsa, it set fire on Al-Aqsa. बैतुल अक्सा की जो मस्जिद है उस पर आग लगा दी गई, and it is a sacred place for the Muslim. As a result, the Muslim all around the world were very angry and they start protesting against this incident. And with this, the Muslim countries throughout the world, they also collected together in the capital of Morocco, which is Rabat, to mutually come at some agreement how to protect the interest of Muslims. इसीलिए OIC की तंजीम बनाई जा रही है. Its membership at present is 57 states spread over the whole world. So as can be seen, it's a very large organization after UN. तो सबसे बड़ी तंजीम है after UN जो कि मुस्लिम कंट्रीज पे मुहित है. And it spread to 4 continents. Al-Aqsa on fire, as I discussed, कि बैतुल अक्सा को 1969 में एक हिस्से को आग लगा दी गई by the Israel, which was one of the immediate reason for the establishment of OIC. In this image, you can see Al-Aqsa Mosque and the fire on the Al-Aqsa Mosque that was done in the year 1969. The purpose of OIC. What is the purpose? आखिर क्यों बनाई गई? तो जिस तरह मैंने पहले कहा कि the immediate purpose was because Al-Aqsa was set on fire, and therefore the Muslim leaders came to the view how to protect the interest of Muslims. तो इसके लिए ये तंजीम बनाई जा रही है. अब इसके बाद जो बाकी purposes हैं which would be taken by this organization, so they are enhanced and consolidate the bonds of fraternity and solidarity among the member states. कि जितने भी member states हैं जो इस्लामिक member countries हैं तो उनके बीच में एक भाईचारे की फिजा बनाई जाएगी और उनके बीच में solidarity यकजहती होगी ताकि एक दूसरे के साथ closely काम कर सकें. Safeguard and protect the common interest of the member states. जो उसके member अरकान हैं उनकी कॉमन इंटरेस्ट और जो मफाद हैं उनके जो मुश्तरका मफाद हैं उनका तहफ़्फ़ुज़ किया जाएगा. रिस्पेक्ट द राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन एंड नॉन इंटरफेरेंस इन द डोमेस्टिक अफेयर्स एंड टू रिस्पेक्ट सोवरेनिटी, इंडिपेंडेंस एंड टेरिटोरियल इंटीग्रिटी ऑफ ईच मेंबर स्टेट. तो जो मेंबर अरकान हैं तो उनकी इन जो इंटरनल अफेयर्स हैं, उनके जो अंदरूनी मामलात हैं, उसमें कोई दखल अंदाजी नहीं हो गया. सो एवरी स्टेट वुड बी इंडिपेंडेंट इन इट्स इंटरनल अफेयर्स, बट द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वुड सपोर्ट द राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन. ऐसी जगह, ऐसे एरियाज जहाँ पे मुसलमान अपनी हकूक़ के लिए आवाज़ उठा रहे हों, अपनी सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट के लिए आवाज़ उठा रहे हों, तो वहाँ पे OIC would be helping it. It would be respecting that community, and it would be helping that community to overcome its problem and to get its right of self-determination. जिस तरह कश्मीर में है, जिस तरह फ़लस्तीन में है कि they are fighting for their right of self-determination, and they are fighting for self-government. Strengthen inter-Islamic economic and trade cooperation in order to achieve economic integration, leading to the establishment of an Islamic common market. तो जो मेंबर अरकान है, उनके बीच में माशी कॉपरेशन इस्टेब्लिश किया जाएगा, उनके बीच में ट्रेड को प्रमोट किया जाएगा, ताकि ये जो मुसलमान है, सो दे आर इन्वॉल्व्ड इन इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़, इन बिजनेस एक्टिविटीज़, इन ट्रेड एक्टिविटीज़ among each other, which will help these Muslim countries grow their economy, and this would also make them to arrive at a Islamic common market. उनके लिए जिस तरह यूरोपियन मार्केट है, जो कि यूरोपियन कंट्रीज ने अपने लिए बनाई है, सो इस तरह ये जो तंजीम है, सो दिस वुड ट्राई टू मेक अ कॉमन मार्केट फॉर द मुस्लिम कंट्रीज, वेयर दे कैन ईजिली sell and purchase their equipments, and their trade can be done through that market, and which would benefit all the member countries in that area. Exert efforts to achieve sustainable and comprehensive development and economic well-being in the member states. So again, it would also try to promote and to protect and to develop human development in the member states and the economic well-being of the member states, ताकि वहाँ पे जो ह्यूमन रिसोर्स कैपिटल है उसकी तरक्की हो, लोग ट्रेन हो, लोग एजुकेटेड हो. Protect and defend the true image of Islam, to combat defamation of Islam and encourage dialogue among civilization and religion. तो इसके साथ ही जो इस्लाम की एक ट्रू पिक्चर है उसको दुनिया को दिखाना है, क्योंकि वेस्ट में इस्लाम की पिक्चर डिफरेंट तरीके से पोर्ट्रे की जाती है. So OIC would be fighting for making that image shown to the whole world, that Islam has a clear image. It is a religion of peace. It is not a religion of terrorists. Rather, it believes in respect for human rights. And all those efforts for defaming Islam, वो तमाम कोशिशें जो कि इस्लाम को बदनाम करती हैं, तो उसके खिलाफ OIC बरसरे पेकार होगी. वो कोशिश करेगी कि इस्लाम का जो ट्रू इमेज है, उसकी जो ट्रू पिक्चर है, वो दुनिया के सामने लाया जाए. Enhance and develop science and technology and encourage research and cooperation among member states in these fields. So again, that's the helping and assistance in improving the member states in the field of science and technology, ताकि जितने भी इस्लामी ममालिक हैं तो वो आपस में cooperation कर सकें. They helped each other in the field of science and technology, and also they would be helping each other and promoting research in the member countries. इसी के लिए बाकायदा OIC also give different types of funds for research projects and for the improvement of research and new findings in the Islamic world. What are the main bodies of OIC? So the main bodies of OIC are three. एक इसमें आता है Islamic Summit, दूसरा the Council of Foreign Minister, and the third is the General Secretariat. Let us see what is the function of each of these bodies. The first body is the Islamic Summit, which is composed of kings and heads of state and governments of member states, is the supreme authority of the organization. तो जिस तरह इस्लामिक समिट है तो ये इस्लामी सरबराही कॉन्फ्रेंस जिस तरह होती है, तो इसमें जितने भी इस्लामी ममालिक के सरबराहान हैं, so they would be coming and they would be joining and they would be discussing. So that's the main body of OIC, in which the heads of the states and the heads of the governments from all the Muslim states, so they are coming and they are discussing, and this body is the main body which is called the Islamic Summit, and it is the supreme authority of the organization, क्योंकि जो मेजर डिसीशंस हैं, जो मेजर फैसले हैं, तो वो इसी और बॉडी ने ही करने हैं. It convenes once every 3 years to deliberate, take policy decision and provide guidance on all issue faced by उम्मा. तो इसका जो इजलास है वो हर 3 साल बाद होता है. So after every 3 years, so these Islamic leaders, they combine and they have this Islamic Summit, in which they also take policy decisions. They also discuss different types of issues, different types of problems which are confronting the Muslim world, and then they provide guidance, they provide directions how these kind of problems should be solved. The second body is the Council of Foreign Ministers. It meets once a year. तो पहले सरबराहान है, उसके बाद जो डिफरेंट इस्लामिक कंट्रीज हैं, जो उनके जो वज़ीर ख़ारजा हैं, फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स हैं, so they also meet and they form the second body of OIC. This always meet once a year. ये साल में एक दफ़ा मिलते हैं. They adopt decisions and resolution on matters of common interest in the implementation of the objectives. And when they are meeting, so they again make decisions, they discuss different types of issues and problems and arrive at matters, arrive at decisions which are for the common interest of all. और जो objective set हैं, जो purpose set हैं OIC के, तो उनको देखना है और उसके मुताबिक different steps उठाने हैं, उसी को देख क्या इन्होंने follow करना है, and they have to initiate different types of projects and different type of activities to meet the objectives of the OIC. It also review progress of the implementation of decision and resolution adopted at various level. तो जो different levels पे different types of resolutions पास होते हैं और जो इस्लामिक समिट है वहाँ से जो उनकी तरफ से फैसले भी होते हैं तो उनको देखना है, उनको implement करना है ताकि उसको follow किया जा सके. So this is again one of the main function of the Council of Foreign Ministers. And then the last body of OIC is the General Secretariat. It is the executive organ of the organization. It is entrusted with the implementation of decision of the two preceding bodies. तो ये ऑफिशियल वर्क करती है और जो फैसले OIC समिट में हो चुके हैं या काउंसिल ऑफ फॉरेन मिनिस्टर में हो चुके हैं उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना है, उसको अमली जमा पहनाना है. यहाँ पे ये बॉडी है जो कि एक्चुअली उन फैसलों को इम्प्लीमेंट करती है. OIC summit in Makkah, so you can see the Islamic summit where all the Muslim leaders and they are having a photo session, and you can see that that's the main body of OIC. What are the achievements of OIC? It has helped in resolving different types of conflicts and tension between the Islamic world. It has helped in conflict resolution through diplomacy and through mediation, through talks, through negotiations. It has solved problems in Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan, Palestine. Iraq में इसने क्या किया? Iraq में it hold successfully the meeting of Iraqi Sunni and Shiite religious leaders and the signing of Makkah Declaration on Iraq to stop shedding blood and pave the way for national reconciliation. तो इराक में जो सुन्नी और शिया के फसादात थे उसको उन्होंने रोका, उनके बीच में बाकायदा डायलॉग्स कराया, उनके बीच में बाकायदा मक्का डिक्लेरेशन हुआ, and as a result it prevented the blood shedding in Iraq. It also strive against terrorism. It stress on promoting moderation and modernization for creating environment of peace and tolerance. It condemns terrorism in all its form. So its stand is very clear कि जो दहशतगर्दी है वो इस्लाम के खिलाफ है. इस्लाम में दहशतगर्दी नहीं है. Islam is the religion of peace and Islam promotes peace and Islam is strongly against terrorism. So OIC has a very clear stand that all those acts of terrorists which are done by the terrorist organizations, so they are not the true picture of Islam. It solves conflicts between Jordan and PLO and make them friends through agreements. It extends its activities from merely holding conference to covering international trade. तो OIC सिर्फ और सिर्फ कॉन्फ्रेंस नहीं करती है, सिर्फ इजलास नहीं करती, इसके अलावा भी ये बहुत से काम करती है. फॉर एग्जांपल, it is helping in promoting international trade between the Muslim countries. It is helping in developing the business and economic activities between the member countries. It has also helped in promoting culture. So there are different culture exchange between the states. There is exchange of scholars, exchange of students, exchange of cultural delegation in the Muslim countries. It has also helped in promoting education. बाकायदा फंड दिए जाते हैं, एजुकेशन को प्रमोट किया जाता है. Different institutions कॉलेज आते हैं which provides education, and it also gives many funding for the research activities and project as well. It has also helped in humanitarian activities. It provides aid to the member countries in case there is a problem or if there is a need. The failure of OIC. OIC also failed in many aspects. OIC failed to solve Palestine problem and innocent killing by Israeli forces in Gaza. तो ये almost सारे लोग कहते हैं कि फ़लस्तीन में जो हो रहा है और इसराइल जो मज़ालिम डाल रहा है, so OIC does not have a very clear stand. It doesn't react to those atrocities made by Israel. इसी तरह OIC also helped in solving Kashmir problem, and there are killings of thousands of people, of innocent people and children and women, but OIC is silent on it. It doesn't have again a very strong and bold policy on Kashmir as well. इसी तरह अफगान वार है, गल्फ वार है, and it was a silent spectator, खामोश तमाशाई बना रहा इसके ऊपर. OIC has achieved nothing to tackle or stop the increasing sectarian violence across the Muslim world. The trade and economic cooperation among Muslim countries is very less. Most of them have trade with West, and their accounts are in the Western banks. तो ये जो इस्लामिक कंट्रीज हैं उनके बीच में ट्रेड प्रमोट करने की कोशिश तो करती है, लेकिन इसके बावजूद the trade between Islamic countries is very less. It is only in some very few aspects, in some very few fields, and not in all fields. The Muslim countries have most of their economic relations are with the Western powers, with the Western countries, and they go for the trade, and they prefer to go for the trade with the Western countries. As a result, the trade between Muslim countries is very less. इसी तरह it also has failed in solving disputes between OIC member states, जिसमें border demarcation है, जिसमें political differences है, कहीं पे बादशाहत है, कहीं पे जमहूरियत है, and as a result again there are conflicting ideologies in different these Middle East and Arab countries, and they also are involved in different types of border activities and ethnic and cultural conflict as well. So still OIC needs to go a long way for becoming an effective Muslim countries representative body. तो ऐसी अभी भी काफ़ी दूर है, इसने काफ़ी सफ़र करना है, अभी भी इसकी अचीवमेंट्स ऐसी नहीं है जिस तरह होनी चाहिए. ये एक सेकंड लार्जेस्ट बॉडी है, but still it hasn't voiced its concern globally. It has to reach through the whole world. It has to go with a strong voice in the whole world, which is lacking. So we hope that inshallah in future OIC will have the capability to achieve that potential and to make its voice and concerns spread throughout the global world and make OIC as an economic and strong body. Dear students, so we are finished with the organizations. Now let's come to our next topic, which is called disarmament and arms control. ये हमारा new unit है, so let's have introduction about this unit. In this unit, we will study about arms control definition and concept. We will discuss about armament and its effects. Difference between arms control and disarmament. Need for disarmament. Disarmament effects. Conclusion. तो शुरू करते हैं इस यूनिट को. So we start with the concept of arms control. आर्म्स कंट्रोल में एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग बात है कि लोग कहते हैं कि ये जो आर्म्स हैं, बेसिकली इफ यू कम टू द न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी एंड इफ यू कम टू एटम बॉम्ब्स, सो एटम बॉम्ब बेसिकली एनर्जी कमिंग फ्रॉम द एटम है. तो उसके बारे में एक बात है कि वी डोंट रूल एटम्स, रादर दीज एटम्स रूल अस. कि हम ये सोचते हैं कि जो एटम्स हैं हम इस पे हुकूमत चला रहे हैं, हम इस पे हुक्मरानी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन फैक्ट तो ये है कि ये जो एटम्स हैं, ये जो स्मॉलर पार्ट्स हैं, सो दे आर रूलिंग अस, दे आर क्रिएटिंग फियर इन अस, दे आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द वॉर, दे आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द पीस. सो दीज एटम्स आर कंट्रोलिंग द पीपल, they are controlling the state, and we are not controlling the atoms. So atoms is the main agent which is controlling our behavior. तो ये तो थी खास इंटरेस्टिंग बात. Let's start our chapter. Arms control does not mean reducing arms and weapons or force. It is simply an agreement made between adversaries to limit the weapons that might be used in warfare between them. तो आर्म कंट्रोल्स, कुछ लोग ये समझते हैं कि आर्म कंट्रोल का मतलब है अपने असलहे को कम करना, इसको ख़त्म करना. हालांकि इसका ये मकसद नहीं है. आर्म कंट्रोल डजंट मीन रिड्यूसिंग द वेपन्स, रादर इट इज़ एन एग्रीमेंट बिटवीन द डिफरेंट कन्फ्लिक्टिंग स्टेट्स. दो रियासतें या दो से ज़्यादा जो रियासतें हैं, जो मुल्क ममालिक हैं, जब उनके बीच में एक ऐसा अग्रीमेंट हो कि वो अपने जो आर्म्स हैं, जो वेपन्स हैं, उसको एक कंट्रोल तरीके से आगे ले जाएं, सो दिस वुड बी कॉल्ड आर्म्स कंट्रोल. तो आर्म्स कंट्रोल में रिमेंबर द स्टेट्स आर एक्वायरिंग वेपन्स, द स्टेट आर एक्वायरिंग आर्म्स, बट दे आर एक्वायरिंग आर्म्स इन अ कंट्रोल मैनर. इसमें एग्रीमेंट दोनों स्टेट्स के बीच में हो जाती है कि किस तरह उन्होंने जो आर्म्स वो हासिल कर रहे हैं उसको एक कंट्रोल तरीके से लेके आगे जाना है. सो इट इज़ अ कोऑपरेटिव एंड मल्टीलैटरल अप्रोच टू आर्मामेंट पॉलिसी इंस्टेड ऑफ अ ब्लाइंड रेस थ्रू म्यूचुअल कंसेंसस. सो थ्रू म्यूचुअल कंसेंसस, थ्रू एग्रीमेंट्स, द स्टेट एग्री, दे कोऑपरेट विद ईच अदर दैट दे वुड गो फॉर आर्मामेंट्स. वो असलहे को हासिल करेंगे लेकिन एक सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से, एक ख़ास तरीके से. दे वुड नॉट गो फॉर अ ब्लाइंड रेस. दोनों के बीच में असलहे की दौड़ नहीं होगी, एक अंधे असलहे की दौड़ नहीं होगी, जिसमें द स्टेट कीप ऑन एक्वायरिंग आर्म्स एंड आर्म्स विदाउट नोटिसिंग दैट दे आर एक्यूमुलेटिंग सच अ लार्ज स्टॉक पाइल ऑफ आर्म्स. रादर द स्टेट्स एग्री दैट दे विल एक्वायर आर्म्स in a controlled manner, and through mutual agreements they come to this point. According to Jeffrey Larson, any agreement among states to regulate some aspect of their military capability or potential. The agreement may apply to location, amount, readiness, and type of military forces, weapons and facilities. तो लार्सन के मुताबिक स्टेट्स के बीच में ऐसे एग्रीमेंट्स हैं जिस पे वो राज़ी हो जाते हैं कि अपनी जो एक मिलिट्री पोटेंशियल है, जो फौजी इस्तेदाद है, जो फौजी क़ुव्वत है, उसको रेगुलेट करें, उसको कंट्रोल करें. मतलब है कि अपनी फौजी ताकत को कंट्रोल करना है दो स्टेट्स के बीच में. कैसे कंट्रोल करना है? इट मे बी अप्लाई टू लोकेशन, कि जो उनकी लोकेशन है जिसमें वो मिलिट्री बेसिस बना सकते हैं डिफरेंट जगहों पे, तो दे कैन अग्री कि दे विल डिक्रीज द मिलिट्री बेसिस. दे मे एग्री ऑन डिक्रीजिंग द अमाउंट ऑफ वेपन्स, कि वेपन्स की तादाद को कम करें. दे मे आल्सो एग्री ऑन द डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ मिलिट्री फोर्स, कि कौन सी फौज को वो उन्होंने बढ़ाना है. नेवल फौज कितनी बढ़ानी है, एयर फोर्स कितनी बढ़ानी है, जो ज़मीनी फौज है उसको कितनी बढ़ानी है. सो दे थ्रू म्यूचुअल एग्रीमेंट्स दे आर डिस्कसिंग विद ईच अदर and arriving at a controlled manner of acquiring weapons and the facilities and the funds. According to Hedley-Bull, armed control is a restraint internationally exercised upon armament policy whether in respect of the level of armaments, their character, deployment or use. तो अगेन अकॉर्डिंग टू बुल इट्स द रिस्ट्रेंट, एक परहेज है, एक इज्तिनाब है। असलहे को जो आप एक्वायर कर रहे हैं, एक स्टेट जो असलहे को एक्वायर कर रहा है, सो इट इज़ अ रिस्ट्रेंट, मतलब है कि एक कंट्रोल मैनर से जाना है, एक सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से जाना है, एक जो ब्लाइंड रेस है उससे अपने आप को बचाना है। सो दीज कंट्रीज वुड बी गोइंग फॉर आर्मीमेंट्स but in a controlled manner. They would also discuss about the character of the weapon. They would also discuss about the deployment or use, कि कितने weapons को उन्होंने डिप्लॉय करना है, उनको नस्ब करना है, कितने weapons को उन्होंने किसी और जगह पे नस्ब करना है, या कितने weapons को वो यूज़ करेंगे। So in general we can say that arms control means increasing your arms but in a controlled manner through mutual agreements with other states. Arm control can be formal, which will involve treaties and other binding arrangements between states. तो arm control can be formal between two states, कि जिसमें दो रियासतें बाकायदा आपस में एग्रीमेंट करती हैं, मुआहदा करती हैं कि किस तरह उन्होंने और कितने कितने वेपन्स इस साल या नेक्स्ट 5 years में बनाने हैं या उन्होंने दूसरे ममालिक से लेने हैं। Or it could be informal, in which a state may control arm herself according to her set priorities. यह इसमें ये भी हो सकता है कि एक स्टेट खुद अपने ही तौर पे कह दे कि उन्होंने इतने आर्म्स सिस्टमेटिकली एक्वायर करने हैं, हासिल करने हैं। तो एक स्टेट खुद भी कर सकता है, लेकिन वो इनफॉर्मली होगा, वो यूनिलैटरली होगा, अपने ही तौर पे कह देना कि मैंने इतने आर्म्स हासिल करने हैं, मेरी सिक्योरिटी के लिए इतने आर्म्स की ज़रूरत है। और इट कुड आल्सो बी मेड विद अनदर स्टेट थ्रू एग्रीमेंट्स, ताकि दोनों की पावर बैलेंस हो। अगर एक स्टेट ज़्यादा आर्म्स एक्वायर कर रहा है और दूसरा कम आर्म्स एक्वायर कर रहा है, तो आखिर में क्या होगा? एक स्टेट ज़्यादा पावरफुल हो जाएगा, दूसरा वीक हो जाएगा, तो क्या हुआ? बैलेंस ऑफ पावर डिस्टर्ब हो गई। सो हाउ टू मेंटेन बैलेंस ऑफ पावर, कि इन दोनों स्टेट्स के बीच में बैलेंस ऑफ पावर रहे, क्योंकि अगर ये आर्म हासिल कर रहे हैं तो ज़्यादा आर्म हासिल करना भी सही नहीं है, क्योंकि उससे ज़ाहिर बात है फंड्स उस तरफ जाएंगे और आपके जो फंड्स हैं दे विल नॉट बी यूज प्रोडक्टिवली। सो दैट्स हाउ द स्टेट गोज फॉर आर्म्स कंट्रोल थ्रू म्यूचुअल एग्रीमेंट्स, ताकि दोनों अपनी जो सिक्योरिटी है उसको भी देखें, लेकिन इतने ज़्यादा आर्म्स भी ना लें ताकि जिसकी वजह से बैलेंस ऑफ पावर भी डिस्टर्ब हो और उनका पैसा भी ज़ाया हो। These process or steps can be unilateral, bilateral or multilateral. The most essential element is the willingness to cooperate with other state to achieve security interest. तो रिमेंबर आर्म्स कंट्रोल एक स्टेट खुद भी कर सकती है, अलग अलग हो के, अकेले हो के, यूनिलैटरली अपने तौर पे भी वो इसको अनाउंस कर सकती है कि इतने आर्म्स उसने एक्वायर करने हैं, एंड दिस इज हाउ इट विल कंट्रोल एक्वायरिंग ऑफ इट्स आर्म्स और वेपन्स। और इट कुड बी बायलैटरली, जिसमें दो स्टेट्स आपस में बैठ के दे थ्रू म्यूचुअल एग्रीमेंट्स मुआहदा करते हैं कि कितने आर्म्स उन्होंने एक्वायर करने हैं। और इट कुड बी मल्टीलैटरल, जिसमें बहुत से स्टेट्स आपस में मिल के दे कैन एग्री कि हाउ मच ईच स्टेट वुड गो फॉर आर्म्स एंड वेपन्स। Arms control can be applied to both weapons of mass destruction, WMD, and to conventional weapons, although it has been applied most heavily to WMD. WMD का मतलब क्या है? Weapons of mass destruction, ऐसे हथियार जो कि बहुत से लोगों को मार देते हैं, जिसका असल मतलब न्यूक्लियरी हथियार है, जिसमें न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब आता है, जिसमें हाइड्रोजन बॉम्ब आता है, जिसमें केमिकल वेपन्स हैं, जिसमें बायोलॉजिकल वेपन्स हैं। एज यू कैन सी इन द नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ, दे आर न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स, दे आर रेडियोलॉजिकल वेपन्स, दे आर केमिकल वेपन्स, biological weapons, and as a result these are very deadly, they are very dangerous. So when we say arms control, so we are not very much interested in conventional weapons. कन्वेंशनल वेपन्स कौन से हैं? जिसमें बंदूक वगैरह आते हैं, जिसमें पिस्तौल आते हैं, जिसमें टैंक्स वगैरह आते हैं. तो ये इतने ज़्यादा मोहलिक नहीं है, जबकि ये जो हथियार हैं ये ज़्यादा डेडली हैं, वेपन ऑफ मैस डिस्ट्रक्शन है. तो जब दो ममालिक आपस में आर्म्स कंट्रोल की बात करते हैं तो वो ज़्यादातर कन्वेंशनल वेपन्स को डिस्कस नहीं करते, क्योंकि वो एक स्टेट की अपनी एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि वो कितने वेपन्स जो कन्वेंशनल वेपन्स हैं उनको हासिल करता है. लेकिन अगर मैस डिस्ट्रक्शन वेपन्स की बात आती है, जो ख़तरनाक हथियार हैं, सोफिस्टिकेटेड वेपन्स हैं, न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स हैं, उसमें फिर स्टेट्स जिनके पास ये ताकतें मौजूद हैं, जिनके पास ये वेपन्स मौजूद हैं, तो फिर वो आपस में एक दूसरे के साथ एग्रीमेंट करती हैं कि कितने एटम बम या कितने केमिकल वेपन्स बनाने चाहिए. तो इस तरह वो आपस में एग्रीमेंट करते हैं. So when we say arms control, so we are mostly interested in controlling these weapons, weapons of mass destruction. Conventional weapons are not much covered because of the implied right of sovereign states to possess them for security and defense. तो जो weapon of mass destruction है वहीं ज़्यादातर आर्म्स कंट्रोल में आते हैं, और जो कन्वेंशनल वेपन्स हैं तो उनकी तो ज़रूरत है स्टेट्स को. द स्टेट्स नीड कन्वेंशनल वेपन्स फॉर देयर सिक्योरिटी, फॉर देयर इंटरेस्ट. सो देयरफॉर कन्वेंशनल वेपन्स will not be most frequently discussed in the arms control. Rather, it would be the weapon of mass destruction that will be discussed in this chapter. Arms control contributes to a more stable and calculable balance of power. जब आर्म्स कंट्रोल होगा तो इससे आपके पास एक बैलेंस ऑफ पावर की सिचुएशन आएगी, क्योंकि जब दो स्टेट आपस में बात करेंगे तो वो ये देखेंगे कि एक दूसरे से ज़्यादा ना बना दिया. अगर एक कहता है कि मैं 10 बनाऊंगा, दूसरा कहेगा कि मैं 9 या 11 या 10 बनाऊंगा. इन दिस वे दे इंक्रीज देयर वेपन्स इन अ सिस्टमैटिक वे एंड स्टिल मेंटेन बैलेंस ऑफ पावर. अगर एक स्टेट का है थ्रू एग्रीमेंट कि मैं 10 बनाऊंगा, दूसरा कहे मैं 1000 बनाऊंगा, so can you see it is not balanced, and therefore it would not be arms control. Arms control is acquiring weapons, getting weapons in a controlled manner. So the two states would then agree, they would then negotiate कि भी 1000 ज़्यादा हैं, अगर आप 1000 बनाओगे तो फिर मुझे भी 900 या तकरीबन इतने करीब बनाने पड़ेंगे. So can we decrease the number of weapons and can we decrease the funds so that we can also work in other atmosphere. So this is how the states through treaty, through agreements go for an arms control. Again, in this kind of weapons, we mean the sophisticated weapons, the weapons of mass destruction. In this image, you can see the different nuclear powers and how many weapons each of the power may possess. तो आपको नजर आ रहा है कि यूएसए के पास सबसे ज़्यादा वेपन्स की सस्पेक्टेबिलिटी है कि समवेयर 10,000 आर एक्सपेक्टेड विद यूएसए. विद रशिया 15,000 है, जबकि बाकियों के पास कम है. रिमेंबर, दिस इज ओनली एन एस्टिमेटेड नंबर based on speculation. It may not be right. Armament versus disarmament. Before going to the topic of disarmament, let us first of all discuss what is armament and what are the implications of armaments. Armament is acquiring arms, increasing armed forces, their military bases and their spending. तो जब मैं कहूँगा armaments or in IR, when we say armaments, so we mean a state acquiring weapons, a state acquiring arms, या a state increasing its armed forces. क्योंकि अगर अपनी फौजों को आप बढ़ा रहे हो तो ये भी armaments है, आप फौजी तैयारी कर रहे हो. अगर आप अपनी military bases को बढ़ा रहे हैं, increasing the military bases, increasing the military stations, again this would be taken as armaments because you are spreading your army in different bases for different types of purposes. Or when a country increase its military budget, when it increased its spending on the military, again this would be called armaments, because the budget would be going somewhere to be used in somewhere for acquiring weapons or for acquiring their military bases or increasing the forces. This is prevalent since ancient times. State acquired arms and weapons for their security. तो ये सिर्फ आजकल के ज़माने में नहीं है, ये पिछले ज़माने से ही बातें आ रही हैं. Even the older states, the ancient states, they used to acquire arms and weapons. So armament is as old as the person, as old as the people, because throughout the ages, the states were acquiring arms and weapons for their security. But armament in those days, in the ancient days, armament was done mostly during crisis and tension. तो पिछले ज़माने में आर्मामेंट्स कब होता या ज़्यादातर कब होता? उस वक्त जब एक स्टेट को ख़तरा लाक होता, जब उसको ये इत्तला पहुंचती कि कोई दूसरा स्टेट आपके ऊपर हमला करने वाला है या सिचुएशन स्टेबल नहीं है, सिचुएशन कन्फ्लिक्टिंग है, तो उस वक्त वो जो स्टेट था, it would try to make weapons, it would try to make arms, and not during the normal time. It was not very much, the forces would not be mobilized and the weapons would not be very much, but when the time for the war would be near or during conflicting situation, then the state would order to make weapons. So armament was done mostly during crisis and tension. The states mostly struggled for quantity of arms at that time. तो शुरू के जो states हैं, जो कि ancient states हैं, जो कि पुराने states हैं, तो उसमें जो असलहे की मिकदार दिया, उस पे फोकस किया जाता कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा असलहा बनाएं, ज़्यादा तलवार बनाएं, ज़्यादा घोड़े लें, ज़्यादा तीर कमान बनाएं, क्योंकि सारों के पास यही चीज़ें हुआ करती थी, तो वो उसको ज़्यादा यूज़ किया करते हैं. But with development of science and technology, quality becomes more important. तो अब जब साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी ने तरक्की कर ली है, अब नंबर इतने अहम नहीं रहे, अब क्वालिटी ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट हो गई है. So now the states are focusing on the quality of the weapons rather than the quantity of weapons, because the quality is more dangerous. One nuclear bomb is enough as compared to a million pistols and guns. So this is how the states are now stressing or emphasizing the quality in the modern nation-state system. The European states fell in a mad race for arms due to rivalry between the European states. तो जो यूरोप में ये कशीदगियाँ रही हैं, ये 19th century, 20th century, so because of that rivalry between different states, because of the rivalry between France, England, Germany, Russia, so these rivalries made these European countries go for a blind race for weapons. So they start getting weapons. They fell in an arms race and they were compiling weapons upon weapons. As a result, they were becoming stronger and stronger, and military spending was also increased. Weapons becomes more sophisticated and perfected. तो जब ये आर्म्स हासिल कर रहे हैं, साथ में इनके पास पैसा भी है, so they are spending more on the arms and the quality of arms, and they are also perfecting their technology. अपनी जो टेक्नोलॉजी है उसको मज़ीद बेहतर कर रहे हैं, तो उनके पास जो वेपन्स हैं वो ज़्यादा सोफिस्टिकेटेड बन रहे हैं, ज़्यादा ख़तरनाक बन रहे हैं, पेचीदा बन रहे हैं. And the weapons are also more perfect now. They can easily hit the target. And with this, military alliances and counter alliances were also formed. So we see that as they were getting weapons, they were getting arms, so they were also forming alliances. वो अब alliances भी बना रहे थे, वो तंजीमें भी बना रहे थे. So this created suspicion and fear and thus resulted in wars. तो आखिर में अंजाम क्या हुआ कि जब आपके खिलाफ अलायंस बनती है, आप कोई स्टेट आर्म्स एक्वायर कर रहा है, तो जो दूसरा स्टेट है उसके दिल में शक बढ़ता है कि आखिर ये आर्म क्यों हासिल कर रहा है, बिकॉज दैट स्टेट would use the arm on that particular neighbor. So the neighbor also start acquiring weapons. And then one neighbor make an alliance with another state, the other make an alliance with another state. And as a result, this creates more tension. This creates fear. खौफ आता है और खौफ की वजह से the states start getting more arms. As a result, finally, when they have the weapons, so they would start fighting with each other. And this World War I and World War II happened because of this reason. So, however, armaments continue after World War II due to Cold War between US and SU. तो हम देख रहे हैं कि इवन वर्ल्ड वॉर II के बाद भी वो कहते हैं अकल काम नहीं आई. Again the two superpowers, they start getting more and more sophisticated weapons. They start getting more and more nuclear bombs. The US and Soviet Union, they were again in a blind race. They were acquiring arms and weapons. New military alliances and blocs were formed, such as NATO and Warsaw. तो अगेन वही हिस्ट्री रिपीट हो रही है जो वर्ल्ड वॉर I से पहले थी कि वही वेपन्स हासिल किए जा रहे हैं, वही आर्मामेंट्स हैं और उसी तरह की तंजीमें बन रही हैं. वी हैव मिलिट्री अलायंसेस बीइंग नाउ मेड, बट दीज अलायंसेस वर नाउ ओपन, दे वर नॉट सीक्रेट. वर्ल्ड वॉर I में दे वर सीक्रेट अलायंसेस, बट नाउ द अलायंसेस आर ओपन. So we can see the alliance of NATO and the alliances of Warsaw Pact. Strategic and more sophisticated weapons invented. For example, spy satellites, ballistic missiles, nuclear bombs. तो आपको नजर आ रहा है काफ़ी ख़तरनाक किस्म के हथियार इस वक्त बन रहे हैं जो कि पहले नहीं दिया, जिसमें बाकायदा जासूस सैयारे आ गए हैं, मिसाइल्स आ गए हैं, न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब बन गया, हाइड्रोजन बॉम्ब वॉज इन्वेंटेड, इंटरकॉन्टिनेंटल बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल ICBM से कहते हैं कि एक कॉन्टिनेंट से लेके इट कैन टारगेट अनदर कॉन्टिनेंट आफ्टर traveling for thousands of kilometers. Now they were fighter planes with precise targets. So what was the effect of such policy? What was the effect of these armaments? The effects were that it led to the wastage of resources. Lots of money was spent on arms manufacturing and imports. Beside, money was stopped from being spent on industry and trade, and thus resulted in inflation and economic crisis. तो जब नज़र आ रहा है कि ये जो जितने पैसे वेपन्स पे लग रहे हैं और ये काफ़ी ज़्यादा पैसे इन चीज़ों के ऊपर लग रहा है, तो ये पैसा if it was used for industry and for trade, it would have been very beneficial. But now this money was not used on that particular fields. Rather, they were used on weapon industry, on arms industry. As a result, we see the wastage of resources. The second is less funds for humanitarian purposes and developmental activities. अगर आपका ज़्यादा पैसा वेपन्स पे लग रहा है, इसका मतलब है कि जो डेवलपमेंटल एक्टिविटीज़ हैं और जो सोशल सर्विसेज हैं उनके ऊपर पैसा नहीं लग रहा, बल्कि उनसे पैसा लेके और जगह पे खर्च हो रहा है. Hindrance to national development and threat to democratic process. इसी के साथ जाहिर बात है, if the country is not developing, if the developmental sphere is stopped from funds, so the country national development would be stopped and the democratic process would also be threatened because the military would be getting stronger and stronger. So another effect of armament is that it produces suspicion, it produces fear and distrust, and because of this there is a threat of war. क्योंकि जब दो स्टेट्स आपस में असलहे की दौड़ में लगे रहेंगे तो उसकी वजह से शक्कों को शुबहात पैदा होंगे, उसकी वजह से खौफ पैदा होगा. और उसके बारे में बैकर कहता है कि आर्मामेंट्स प्रोड्यूस फियर एंड फियर प्रोड्यूसेस मोर आर्मामेंट्स. कि जब आर्मामेंट्स कोई स्टेट करता है तो उससे दूसरा स्टेट को खौफ पहुंचता है और उस खौफ की वजह से वो मज़ीद असलहे की दौड़ में लग जाता है. सो रिमेंबर दैट्स अ साइकिल. आर्मामेंट्स प्रोड्यूस फियर and fear produce more armaments. So what is happening? you are wasting the resources on armaments, and these kind of armaments again affects the relation between states. It affects the cooperation between states, and due to this, what actually happen is that the states are in front of each other. They are eye to eye with each other. Now they are in a state of conflict and tension, which may result in a war. So after this, as we see that the threat of a horrible war, the threat of another war was there, क्योंकि जो दो camps हैं, they are involved in armaments, they are involved in strategic weapons acquiring, and they are testing their nuclear weapons. So this cannot go for a long, क्योंकि दोनों की economies जो है वो disturb हो रही हैं, and a threat of war is always there. So what we can suggest now, that there is a need for disarmaments. आखिर कब तक states असलहा हासिल करते रहेंगे, असले की दौड़ कब ख़त्म हो गया? तो अब एक ऐसा स्टेज है कि the countries should go for disarmaments. So what is disarmaments and why a state should go for disarmament? So the reason for disarmament is that armament instill fear and distrust in neighboring states for their security, thinking that the other state is undertaking military preparedness and possibly attack. क्योंकि जब कोई country armaments पे लग जाती है, when it start getting arms and weapons, so it produces fear, and because of the fear, the other neighboring states become very suspicious. It also start acquiring weapon because it think that the other state is making weapon or acquiring weapon for attack on it. तो armament से remember क्या बनता है, क्या पैदा होता है? It produces fear. According to US report of 1951, it say our arms create fear in Russia. Russia arms create fear in us. By seeking to deter Russia by military might, we are inevitably forced to plunge the world into an arms race. An arms race is not conducive to security. ये यूएस की रिपोर्ट है जो कि 1951 में शाया हुई है, और वो ये कहता है कि जो हमारे वेपन्स हैं, जो यूएस के वेपन्स हैं, वो रशिया में खौफ पैदा करता है, और जब रशिया वेपन्स पैदा करता है तो वो हमारे अंदर खौफ पैदा करता है, और इसी खौफ की वजह से हम दोनों क्या कर रहे हैं, हम आर्म्स हासिल कर रहे हैं. वी आर गेटिंग वेपन्स, एंड दिस आर्म रेस is not good for the security of the world. This is not good for the security of any country. So if armament leads to war, then it means disarmament would lead to peace. अब ये opposite है. अगर कोई state armament में involve है, तो उसकी वजह से क्या होगा? There would be tension. There would be threat to the world peace. अगर हम इसके opposite जाएं, if we disarm, अगर हम अपने जो वेपन्स हैं जिसने ये खौफ पैदा किया है, अगर हम इसको ख़त्म कर दें तो क्या होगा? क्या अमन कायम नहीं होगा? बिकॉज इफ आर्म्स लीड्स टू वॉर, देन दिस मीन्स डिसआर्म शुड लीड टू पीस, बिकॉज दैट इज द ऑपोजिट. सो दिस मीन्स डिसआर्ममेंट may lead to peace. It may lead to good friendly relations. This is according to Palmer and Perkins, that disarmament may lead to peace. However, through mutual agreements to limit arms, or disarmament can open up communication between states. अब एक state अपने आप को तो disarm नहीं कर सकता, उसके लिए it has to go with an agreement with another state, that's the enemy state, और दोनों ने आपस में मिल के बैठ के ये डिस्कस करना है कि how many arms and how much arms they should give up or they should reduce. So disarmament में they would be reducing their arms, they would be giving up their arms through mutual agreements, and this would lead to greater transparency. Again, this would also lead to better understanding of a state's intention, क्योंकि जब दोनों states आपस में बैठ के बात करेंगे कि जो हमने weapons हासिल किए हैं ये हमारे लिए बेहतर नहीं है, let us give up these weapons, let us destroy these weapons. So this would create more understanding between these two countries. This would create more close relation, and better friendly ties between these countries. This would increase the understanding between these two countries. So this means disarmament is very good for establishing friendly relations. Dear students, let's have a review of today's lecture. हमने पहले OIC पढ़ा and we discussed that OIC was founded in 1969. The purpose of OIC was to look for the mutual interest, to look after the common interest of the Muslims. The cause or the reason for making OIC was the incident of fire on Masjid al-Aqsa, जब मस्जिद अल-अक़सा के हिस्से को आग लगा दी गई. And because of it, the Muslims of the world become very resented, they become very angry, and the leaders of the Muslim countries also met in Rabat, Morocco, and they established OIC. The earlier name was Organization of Islamic Conference. The name was then changed to Organization of Islamic Countries. It has three main bodies. One is the summit, the second is the Council of Foreign Ministers, and the third is Secretariat. जो समिट है उसमें जितने भी इस्लामी ममालिक के सरबराहान हैं वो आते हैं and they discuss the different issues, the different problems and the different challenges that are occurring to the Muslim Ummah. They meet after every 3 years. उसके बाद जो उसका Council of Foreign Ministers है उसकी बारी आती है जिसमें Foreign Ministers of the Muslim countries they come, their meeting is every one year, and they discussed the issues and the problems which are discussed by the summit and try to implement them and try to see other issues and problems and to practically implement them and to find solutions and problems to the different tasks and the different challenges facing the Muslim world. Secretariat is the executive organ of the OIC. It implements the decisions made by the Council of Ministers, Foreign Ministers and the summit. उसके बाद we discussed arms control and disarmament. In arms control, we discussed that by arms control we do not mean the increasing of arms, but rather it means the controlling of acquiring of weapons, the controlling of acquiring of arms. So it refers to a systematic way of acquiring weapons. This is through mutual agreements between states, or it could be even unilaterally, in which a state by its own can decide and can announce that it is going for decreasing for arms control, which means regulation of arms. It will acquire arms in a controlled manner. Remember, arms control में सिर्फ जो weapon of mass destruction है वो हम डिस्कस करते हैं. Conventional weapons बहुत कम इसके दायरे में आते हैं because conventional weapons are regarded as essential for security of a country. But the weapon of mass destruction, because of their deadly effect, because of their terrible effect, so this comes under arms control, in which the states agree on how much arms they would acquire, and this would a bit relieve the tension between the two states. Armaments and its effects. Armament is acquiring arms. जब कोई स्टेट अपने वेपन्स में इजाफा करता है, अपनी फौजों की तादाद में इजाफा करता है, और it increase its military bases, or it increase its budget on the military, so this would be coming in armaments. Remember, armaments में the states keep on acquiring arms, they keep on acquiring weapons, and because if one state is getting arms and weapons, the other states or other neighboring countries also start getting arms and weapons for their own security. Why? Because armaments leads to distrust. Armaments leads to fear, and fear leads to more armaments. तो इसीलिए neighboring countries जो हैं they fell in an arms race. As a result, the money, the funds which should have gone to social sector and for other economic betterment, so they are spent on acquiring weapons. The country national development suffers. Also, the region is in a state of constant conflict and tension, and this may result in war. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि armament सही नहीं है. Armament is not good. Therefore, the state should go for disarmament. What is disarmament? this is the opposite of armaments, which means decreasing the weapons of a state, giving up the weapons, abolishing the weapons, destroying the weapons. So this would be called disarmament. Why? Because if arm race or armaments leads to tension, this means disarmament leads to peace. तो ये फलसफा है disarmament का. With this we come to the end of today's unit. I hope you have understand. I wish you best of luck. Allah Hafiz.